Hey, Jennie.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, I'm so happy to have you here.
So happy to be here. It's been far too long.
I know we are trying something new on the podcast where I am inviting more coaching conversations where the listeners can really get to experience what it's like to be in a coaching session. And I think there's so much that we can learn from each other and so much that we can learn from listening to and witnessing someone else in their process. So I just appreciate you being here, your vulnerability, and your willingness to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an open book. So I was excited that you had me on, and yeah, just excited for this convo.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I would love to start by just tuning in to what has been on your heart lately, what's been alive for you, and really what you want support with today in the session.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like what's kind of been an on and off struggle for me lately has been really locking into the practices that make me feel good and just self care overall. So, even the simple things like sleep, cooking, all of the simple things that make such a big difference. And I feel like it's been on and off where I'll be feeling really good and then I fall off. And then I hit probably at the beginning of this year a lull where I just feel like I let it all go. And then a lot of shame came up around that because obviously I am a coach as well. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why am I like this? Or how have I let this happen when I know better? And think like a lot of thoughts like that. And I like recently have come out of it a little bit and I'm feeling way better. But I think I'd like support around staying connected to myself and keeping up with the things that make me feel good because I want it to be consistent.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing two parts of that. One is like, how do I stay consistent with these practices that I know feel really good to me when I'm doing them? And then the other piece is around like being really hard on yourself when you're not doing the practices and then having a lot of the shame and the self-judgment come up. Does that feel true?
Yes, absolutely. Because I feel like since starting my business, like, I mean, and you were there for my whole transformation, and I feel like I started my business, and then I think I pictured myself to be like always in alignment or always on track. And now I'm coaching other women and helping them get in alignment and everything. And I was like, I feel like even seeing my clients do so well and then feeling like, why am I not doing well? But I also am like, I always joke that I'm my own worst client. So I'm like, I really can't, I could coach myself, but that's why I seek, outside support. But I feel like that the shame piece was pretty intense for a while. Again, just like not letting myself be a human. But I think I struggle with when I speak to the consistency piece of self care is, I have the awareness that if I'm judging myself, that's not a good thing. And I know that piece, but then I also feel like I'm trying to find the balance of not judging, but also not just throwing my hands up and being like, all right, I'll just forgive myself and lay here and like not work out and it's fine. Like there has to be that happy medium. And I feel like that's where I struggle.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I'd like to look at this through a few different lenses. One being taking a look at it from the lens of the masculine and feminine.
Mhm.
So the way that I like to look at this specifically is, the masculine in this case represents the discipline, the
Yep.
self-discipline to show up and to do the things that we say that we're going to do, to have that motivation to be moving forward. And then the feminine is about really honoring how you're feeling and making sure that you're listening to your body and nourishing yourself. And it feels like there's this fear if I let myself just, like, if I give myself compassion and if I let myself do just what feels good, then I'm going to go down this rabbit hole and not be able to get back on track. Does that feel true?
Yeah, I would say so because I almost feel like, well, how can I just sit here all the time? I mean, and that's really not what it is, but I think that is probably the fear, that I'm not doing enough. And I know that I have a picture in my mind of like how I want my days to look and like how I want my energy levels to be and what I want to be accomplishing both in like my full-time job and my business. And I like see it. And then when I feel so far from that, I'm just like, it's hard, and I think there probably has to be some adjustment to like what version of myself I'm comparing myself to, that like maybe that isn't realistic considering my life right now,
Mhm. Yeah, what I'm hearing is that there is a expectation of feeling good all the time, and an expectation that, or a standard that you hold yourself to that is really high. And
Mhm.
then when you don't meet that, then there's the feeling of disappointment and self-judgment and shame that comes up for you.
Yes, 100%. And it's even so much so that if I'm like texting with a friend or something and they're like, oh, I've been up since 6 and I ran a bunch of errands and now I'm like doing, setting up my apartment or something like that, and I feel like it triggers me almost when other people are like productive. That hasn't been the case so much like lately, but it has come up for me where I'm like so jealous, where I'm like, oh my God, like, and I can't fall asleep and then I can't get up early and then like I haven't worked out, or so I feel like even though I know what other people are doing have nothing to do with me, I take it like to heart and then I'm like, why am I not, why can't I be like this? I feel like so far from that, too. So I think that's another piece of it.
Yeah. So I'd like to break down a little bit around what does this voice of shame and self-judgment sound like? So I want you to share with me when you're being hard on yourself, when you're frustrated, when you are feeling stuck and you're not doing the things that you quote unquote should be doing or want to be doing. What does that voice in your head sound like? What does she say to you?
I feel like the biggest piece, honestly, is like, you're a fraud because you're a coach. So how are you not doing the practices that you are so passionate about? And it's like, that's true. Like I am passionate about them. And like, of course, I help my clients develop their own practices and rituals. And I'm so about self-care and I'm so for self-care. So I feel like when I'm off, quote unquote, off track, that's probably what the voice will say. Like, you're off track, like you're a mess. And how are you even a coach for like being where you're at? That's probably like the loudest voice.
Mhm. Yeah. When you share that out loud and speak it, what do you notice?
That voice is mean. Well, and I feel like, I mean, when I say it out loud, I know that that's just not true because coach or not, I'm still a human. And also what makes me a great coach is not being, you know, perfectly on track all the time. And the fact I think that I'm always learning and I'm kind of like, I'm kind of always going through it. But I think if that's the case, then I'm also always learning and growing. And that is what helps me show up for my clients so well. So it's like, there is that piece that I think that I forget, and people don't really want to, people don't really feel seen or understood if they're talking to someone that they feel like just has it all together and that they can't relate to. Most people are always trying to figure their stuff out, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. So I hear that intellectually you understand this, like you
Mhm.
recognize that there's a standard, there's this version of if I'm a coach, then I need to show up a certain way. I need to be perfect. I need to be on my game all the time, that I'm out of integrity if I'm guiding my clients when it comes to their self-care practices and I'm not doing it myself. So I hear
Mhm.
that there's a lot of awareness and emotional intelligence around conceptually understanding what's happening right now.
Yes, a ton.
Yeah. And I feel like there's something deeper on more of like an embodiment or an emotional level that still feels stuck. Like it's like, you know, these things, but like you're still repeating the pattern and there's the actual emotion. I want to go on an emotional level and journey in that space to see if we can release some energy around this. Are you open to that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to have you pause just because I can hear your dryer. Can you pause it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Now you can.
Yeah.
See. Okay. Should be better now.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we're just going to take a moment to close your eyes and turn inwards. Just start to take a couple of deep breaths. Inhaling, slow exhale, calming down the nervous system, dropping into the body. Take another deep breath in. Breathing out. I want you to tune into your body. Notice, what is the emotion that comes up when your inner critic is there, when you are judging yourself for not being the perfect coach or for being out of integrity, for not showing up for your practices? Is there an emotion that comes up for you as you connect to that?
I feel like it is shame. And then I think that as a result of not staying, locked into my practices, I feel like sadness happens as a byproduct because, like exercising and eating well and, all of my spiritual practices like really just like bring me so much joy. So I think I do feel sad when I'm not, in all of those practices.
Mhm.
But I feel like shame is the loudest one probably.
Okay, so let's start with that shame. And I want you to connect with, where does that shame live in your body when you feel that shame and that self-judgment and this idea that there's something wrong with me because I'm not doing it right and I can't seem to stay on track? Where do you notice that coming up in your body?
I would say like my chest, my heart a little bit, but mainly just like across my chest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's tune into that sensation for a moment. And if that sensation had a texture or a description of how it feels, what does the shame feel like? Does it feel heavy, tight?
The first thing that came to mind, honestly, was like a brick. Like it
Mhm.
feels like almost like sharp on the edges and then also like heavy weighing me down type of feeling.
Okay, beautiful. So let's tune into that sensation of that heaviness, that weight on your chest, and really just connect to the feeling of it without all the stories behind it, without the meaning, connecting to the feeling in your body, that heaviness. I want you to notice that contraction that happens when you're in the space of shame, when it feels heavy. And as you tune into the sensation, is it getting louder? Is it getting heavier? Is there anything that you're noticing?
I feel like when I tune into it, it just feels more present.
Mhm,
Like I can notice it more. Um,
mhm,
yeah, it just feels more real, I would say.
mhm. Okay. And does this feeling of shame remind you of anything else in your life, either now or in your childhood? What is the first thing that comes to mind?
Mm.
Another time where you felt this weight on your chest.
I would say that the first thing that pops up is probably the challenges like in my last relationship and, going back to that person, on and off throughout a lengthy period of time and feeling shame for that. It's probably similar, it feels similar.
Yeah. Okay. So staying with this feeling, this sensation, the self-judgment, of the shame. And if this sensation had a color to it, what color would it be?
Like a deep red.
Okay. So let's allow that feeling, that color, tuning into it. And seeing if this shame has a voice or a message that it wants you to know. What is it speaking to you? What is it sharing with you?
I do hear like, you can let me go
Okay.
first.
It feels like it's ready to start moving or to release.
And now it's like, it's time. So that's
Hmm.
what I'm hearing next. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's be with it. And we're going to bring in some breath and see if we can move the energy without, again, any story or reasoning. Just starting to bring some breath through your nose. Imagine that you are drawing in a bright white light into your chest, into that heavy sensation. And imagine that as that white light comes through, it starts to open and expand, bringing some lightness, some spaciousness. On that exhale, I want you to imagine that you're breathing out the color red, that deep, deep red. Inhaling the pure white light of love and compassion and kindness. Exhaling the deep red, the heaviness, the self-judgment. Another deep breath in, creating the spaciousness, tenderness, compassion. Exhaling, really see that color red as it starts to fade and dissipate. What are you noticing now in the sensations in your body on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it's still really heavy and intense, and 1 being really light? Where are you at?
I would say like a 4. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like much more calmer.
Okay. Yeah. So let's do a couple more rounds of breath, breathing in. And this time I want you to connect with what it is that your little girl or the younger version of yourself needs to hear. Maybe you can connect to how you would speak to your mom or to a friend or someone else who is experiencing this feeling of shame. I want you to breathe that into the space where the shame is being held. So maybe there's some words of wisdom that want to come through, and breathe them into your heart. Breathing out that red. If you feel called to share out loud any words that you would say to someone that you loved, if they were being hard on themselves, if they were stuck in this pattern of not taking care of themselves and judging themselves, what would you say?
I would say that you've been through so, so much, and you've had so much change, and that you deserve to go easier on yourself, and that you don't have to set this perfect expectation of how you need to be. And that the sooner you accept where you're at now, um, it will create really the flow to move forward. And
Hmm.
that baby steps are also okay. You don't have to jump full force into the entire routine. You can start small.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, really clear wisdom. I'm just taking one more breath in, really receiving those words from your higher self. okay to let go of this shame. It's okay to let go of this judgment, releasing it now, clearing it. Beautiful. And when you feel ready, you can start to slowly come back into your body, wiggling your fingers and toes. And if you feel ready, you can start to peep open your eyes gently and slowly.
We're so comfortable with them closed.
Yeah.
Always is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing is that through bringing some gentleness and compassion, that's actually how you're going to be able to stay on track, and to, even if you do feel out of alignment or you're not doing your practices, that you can actually recover faster and get back into it faster when you give yourself space to be human, when you're not being so hard on yourself.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I've found on my own journey. There's this saying, it's kind of like this analogy of the double poison arrow, where it's like when you're doing something that's out of alignment or that doesn't feel good, it already doesn't feel great and you kind of feel bad about it. But then if you add the second arrow, which is called the poison arrow, it is like adding fuel to the fire. And that's the one that's actually the most painful. It's the one that creates the most intense emotional pain when you're judging yourself for doing something that is out of alignment. And so if we can really come back to that space of the self-compassion, of being gentle with yourself, the sooner that we can get there, then the sooner that we can actually get curious about why things are out of balance or what might be off, and then take intentional action moving forward.
Yeah, I really liked what you said about the poison, like that makes so much sense, because it already doesn't feel good if you're not doing the things that make you feel good. So why would you even add extra feelings of not good to yourself, So I think that's like, it's helpful to even like visualize that, I think, moving forward.
Yeah. And then also when we think about frequency and the vibrational frequency of judgment and shame, if we look at the scale, because I know you and I have looked at this before, but different emotions have different energies, different vibrations, and shame and judgment are some of the most dense and lowest frequencies, which is probably why it feels so heavy in your body when those are present. And so when that shame is there, it's really hard to be moving forward or taking action, because it does feel like a weight. It feels like this heavy brick and you can't get out from underneath it. And
yes, 100%.
If we move up that emotional guidance scale and even just come to a place of acceptance, that's kind of more of like a neutrality. You don't have to be excited that you're off track. You don't have to be like, oh, I love when I'm in this place. But if we can come to a place of acceptance versus that judgment and shame, that already makes it lighter, the frequency lighter. And then from there, we can start to access higher frequencies and higher vibrational emotions too.
Yeah. And what I noticed, what helped me this past weekend, because again, I had the picture in my mind of like getting up earlier and running errands all day and working out and all the things. But I ended up sleeping in, and then I worked out, and I found myself even wanting to be hard on myself for that. But I'm like, you just did that home workout that makes you feel the best. Who cares if you did it at noon? Like I should be celebrating instead of like, it's okay that it wasn't at 7 or 8 in the morning, and I did that both Saturday and Sunday at noon. And honestly, and then I woke up this morning and did it at 7:30. So it's like, I think even, I'm trying to think of the phrase I said to myself over this weekend. I think I just said, yeah, and like today, this is what it looks like, something like that. And it's also the weekend and I work a lot. So like that can be fine, just letting go again of that picture in my mind, or that really that expectation, like we were talking about.
Yeah, there's a couple things that are coming to mind right now. One being that there is some really deep wisdom in honoring your own cycles. And maybe your cycle doesn't look right now like waking up at 7 a.m. because you do work a lot and you have a lot of energy output. And maybe your body is actually asking you for more rest, but you're trying to fit it into this picture perfect. I need to wake up at 6:30. I need to be done by 9. It needs to look exactly this way. And so I think there's some room for flexibility in honoring, okay, right now with everything that I have going on in my life, it might not look that exact way, but that doesn't mean that I'm not moving towards my goals. That doesn't mean that I'm not doing anything at all. So I'm curious what comes up for you when I share that about like honoring the season or the cycle that you're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, it really resonates, I think, especially because I mean, and you know that I just left like a really toxic job that I was in for 11 months, and I overlapped it with a great job, but I had no break in between. And even though I started with a new job that, is supportive and has good people, it's still stressful. Anytime you start a new job, you're still learning a bunch of information. And I have my business, which even if it's not my technical full time, it feels like my full time. And that's what I love. So that's what I pour so much energy into also. And it's like that's a lot to have on my plate. And like, but that's where I'm at right now. And so I think, I can cut myself some slack. And like I think also the rest piece, I know my human design is a projector. And like rest is supposed to be like their superpower. And like we're supposed to, more so teach a new way, right? Of like less, a new way from all the typical productivity that society kind of sets. But like from what I've learned about my human design, I've learned that like projectors thrive on rest, and like they thrive on actually like working for a few hours and like taking a break. They're not meant to like, so I almost think like the picture in my mind or that expectation probably doesn't even like work with my actual like energetic like blueprint or like how I'm wired.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably why I burn out so much, because I'm trying to achieve something that like that's not what will work best for me, and being like finding what works best for me and also accepting it. Like it doesn't have to look like what everyone else is doing.
Mm, yeah, I feel that. You definitely operate more like a generator in human design. And
Mhm.
it's like you burn through all of your energy. And then you're like, why can't I work out? Why can't I eat healthy? Why can't I take care of myself? And it feels like you're almost fighting your own blueprint or your
Mhm.
own way of that your energy operates. And I'm curious to know what you think would happen if you really did allow yourself to truly rest, like not just like rest, but be hard on yourself because you're
Mhm.
resting. What do you think would happen if you actually let yourself rest?
Yeah, I feel like it would be life changing probably. Because I mean, and especially the last, I would say I really hit like burnout the first week of March, like almost so much so that it feels like that was months ago. And it was what, a couple weeks ago. I almost feel like I was in a daze or something because I just was so burned out. And now I lost track of where I was going with that. But if I really allowed myself to rest, like, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the key, really, to be honest. And and even last night, I plugged my phone in out in my living room, and I like got in my bed at 9:30 and was just like in the dark. And I really wasn't tired, but I was like, then I will just lay here and like deep breathe until I fall asleep. And like I did feel so much better today.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. But again,
Yeah.
I think it's like letting go of this expectation is like the biggest piece.
I think there's expectation. And I also think there's a fear that if I let myself rest, then I will never get anything done and I will never be productive. And that is
Mm,
a deep, deep programming that we have learned from the patriarchal society that we live in that really teaches us you need to be working all the time, you need to be on all the time. And this fear of can I actually trust myself to show up? Can I trust
mhm,
myself that if I let myself rest, then am I ever going to be productive? Am I ever going to be able to move forward? So there's a lot of
Yeah.
programming under here, which would probably be like a whole different conversation. I just wanted to
Yes.
highlight that when that voice comes up of, if I rest, then that means I'm lazy. And then there's judgment around being lazy and unproductive. That's your work, is to really
Hmm.
recognize when that inner critic is coming up and when that old programming is coming up, and remind yourself of the truth that I'm a projector. I need to rest. And when I'm rested, that's actually when I perform my best and when I can show up to my fullest.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And actually, my thought came back where I've been saying for so long, and especially since the beginning of March, like every time I talk to my mom or anyone, I'm just like, I am literally exhausted all the time. It almost was feeling like, I think that's how I knew I was burnt out, that even when I was resting, I would be so tired, or I'd be tired within like 3 or 4 hours of starting my day. Um, and so, I mean, and again, like sometimes we have to go to that place to really listen, because you can only operate like that for so long. And I think I just hit that point. And so like it does feel good to be taking the small steps. And so I'm glad, like I feel like I got a lot from this convo too, to move forward. And I think the biggest piece is, yeah, working on releasing that programming, and also like releasing the judgment, and like letting myself actually show up in a way that will allow me to be most productive and like honor who I actually am, that
Mm,
I'm not meant to be go, go, go. And even if you are a generator, I mean, even if you have the energy for it, I still think regardless of your human design type, like that is programming that's being, reframed overall. Like we all get to rest, we all get to relax, and, incorporate more of the feminine energy there.
mhm. Beautiful. Yeah, so powerful.
Yeah.
And you mentioned baby steps. This is the last piece that I wanted to offer here today, is that it feels like when you are feeling off track and when you are not in your self-care practices, that there's this idea that you need to do all of your practices and you need to work out and you need to meditate and journal and do all of them in order to get back on track. And
Hmm.
what I would invite is to pick one or two practices and let that be enough for
Yeah.
now, and then build on them. Because when we do this all or nothing thing, then it feels super overwhelming, and you're constantly going to be falling short of where you want to be.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Cause even the past, like this weekend, I've worked out, the past few days, and I've also meditated each day too. Cause I think that's what I did, is I chose the thing that like really that I love the most, and that is meditating. And I like when I meditate consistently, I feel like, I don't know, I can't even put it into words. It's just like I guess alignment, it just that's probably the most transformative piece for me. And so I've been doing that and exercising. And I will say, like today I felt for the first time like rested when I woke up and everything. And so I know I'm on my way. So
Amazing. So great. Yeah, I'm excited. It sounds like the momentum is shifting in a new direction, and yeah, feels like those two things are going to give you the most return on your investment. Basically, like if you
mhm.
meditate and work out, that focusing on the things that move the needle the most is what's going to then be the catalyst for all of the other things to fall into place, is what I usually find.
Yeah, exactly. And I am going to Sedona, Arizona on Thursday, and that's supposed to be a very magical and like healing place. And I'll be at a retreat center. So I'm like, I think that's really going to help me just rejuvenate all of me. So I'm so excited.
I'm really excited for you.
Yeah, thank
Yay.
you.
Yeah. So let's do a really quick recap, a couple of your takeaways moving forward from our conversation today.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest one is releasing the expectation in my mind of how I should quote should, how, I should look, or how my day should look. And I also really dislike the word should, so that should help me. Just anything with a should, I'm like, no. But anyway, so I think letting go of that. And then I think, well, honestly, I really liked that visual of thinking like, if you already don't feel good, don't add to that. Like, I feel like that will actually help me judge myself less. And then again, like focusing on, I forget how you worded it, but like the practices that will help me like feel the best, and focusing in on those and like letting everything else fall into place as it should.
Mhm. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Amazing. Well, thank you for letting us see you. Thank you
of
for
course.
sharing. And I look forward to seeing how things continue to come back into alignment for you in this new season.
Thanks so much, Amy. Appreciate you.
Hmm.